Now I am not in, let's see here. Okay, that's not working. That's the princess. Let's see here. Okay, my spacecraft design concept is named after the 1970s flower children because it is not a military or a weapon spacecraft design. It's not a military craft design. It's not a weaponized spacecraft design. It's about peaceful habitation of outer space, peaceful colonization of outer space via civilian, Earth-human civilians engaged in outer space tourism activities. As a way to research and develop the spacecraft design that is needed for colonizing Mars, for Earth-human civilians to colonize Mars. It's a peaceful thing. I do work on weaponized spacecraft designs, but they're not Flower Child project designs. Those are STQ spacecraft designs. So, let's try this. And when it comes to the spelling of the Flower Child project, it's always in capitals. So the flower children, it has capital F, lowercase flower, and then capital C, child, but small case child, small case child. And me, it's capital flower, all capitals. And it's always Flower Child Project. It's not, well, the Flower Child Project is the 1970s, retro 1970s movement is, go to search. There we go. Archives use the flowers as a steampunk RPG. This is not an RPG system. It's a tabletop miniatures wargame system. It's an aero-naval wargame system based in the 1880s. It's like I said, steampunk. It's sort of Victorian age era, outer space, science fiction, tabletop miniatures wargame system based on the Space 1889 RPG system. So, so I was doing some. That's it. I need to cut. I need to make a put that series in a label. Playlists. There we go. Oh, I do have it in the series. Okay. There we go. These other projects are third edition, version 3, Prisma 3D version 3. All of these are version 2, Prisma 3D version 2 projects. A few of them are actual videos using Prisma 3D version 2. They're short videos, maybe 10 seconds long at the most. So, let's see here. Let's go to autoplay. Hopefully that'll autoplay all of that. So this is a version 2, Prisma 3D version 2 video. And then it's okay. And then it's going to go through this, and this video talks about the difference, how my Flower Child project relates to the Flower Children, and ways it does and ways it does not. I have no problems with them. I'm a Flower Child wannabe, too young to be part of the scene, but old enough to remember. So, okay, so this is part of what I've done with the Flower Child project. Primary Prisma 3D, which is started in 2018, maybe late 2018, maybe early 2019, I'm not sure. When my Facebook account, when my computer crashed in 2018, it was about 6 months until I started working with Prisma 3D. And so I started doing Prisma 3D either in 2018 and 2019, I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember the date that my computer crashed. But the computer crashed when I posted I did two postings. The first posting was Blender 3D between 2015 and 2018. I was using Blender 3D for my presentation folder year 2020 AD, which is an updated version of my 2004 presentation folder. After I did the 2004 handouts, I realized I needed to do some. If I wanted to pursue the Flower Child project, I needed to have a 3D app version of AutoCAD to pursue the Flower Child project spacecraft designs. My brother introduced me to Blender in 2014, in October I think, and in January 2015 I started using Blender 3D to experiment with my 2004 drawings, and then I expanded to other things, and then in by 2016 I came to realization that I need to change the 2004 presentation format to a different format, and the new format is the Flower Child Project presentation folder, year 2020 AD. So I've called my spacecraft design concept has been enabled to Flower Child since 1993. I did not learn about the Flower Child project until 2014, 2016. In 2011, I made a Facebook page. I was talking about science and technology and stuff, issues. And then I eventually created a Facebook page, Query's Laboratory QLab, to talk specifically about the Flower Child project. My Flower Child project spacecraft design concept. So, and somewhere between 2014 and 2016, I learned about this group. And the retro fashions, the retro decor, the 1970s fashions, the 1970s decor, this is the 1970s culture thing. So, I am not opposed to Flower Children project. I am all for that. If they were to, now, like I said, I was too young to be part of the thing, but I don't know if you remember. In the 1970s, the Flower Children were opposed to manned spaceflight activities, because we need to take care of our problems here on Earth before we spread our problems outside, to other planets and stuff. What Gene Roddenberry, original TOS, Star Trek TOS, kind of embraced in some of its episodes. That's what the Prime Directive was about, preventing the chaos of our society affecting other alien societies. So I kind of agree with that. I was 3 years old when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And because of that, I am a hardcore believer in peaceful human presence in outer space and other celestial bodies, which means I'm all for astronauts, cosmonauts, and radionauts peacefully engaging in space exploration activities, establishing a research space station out in Earth's orbit, learning about the hazardous, learning about planetology, going to the moon, learning about planetology, astrology, and stuff like that. Going to Mars for research and stuff. I have no problems with that at all. When you talk about civilian colonization of outer space via space stations, via lunar bases, via Mars base, which the U.S. multimedia news industry hypes all the time. Whenever they talk, whenever the NASA, Werner von Braun, Buzz Aldrin, and Planetary Society people talk about, let's put a research base in our Earth's orbit. Let's put a research base on the moon. Let's put a research base on Mars. Mars Direct was not about civilian colonization of Mars. And if you want to colonize Mars, the Nova rocket was not it. It would work for the astronauts and cosmonauts establishing a temporary research base facility on Mars, but setting up a permanent civilian colony on Mars ain't going to happen. there are, for civilians to engage in Mars colonization activities, civilians need to be able to experience spaceflight firsthand via outer space tourism activities. So if you want, and so having, that what Will Shatner did, okay, the 6 ladies that went up that transorbital flight. They probably reached the boundary layer to the ions between the stratosphere and the ionosphere. They probably didn't. I don't think the spacecraft had that. That capsule is actually capable of surviving the stratosphere, the ionosphere. So they went way up there, and the ionosphere is considered outer space. So if you've been in the ionosphere, you're an astronaut with an asterisk. If you go beyond the ionosphere, you're a pure astronaut. Period. No asterisk behind your. No asterisk. So I have no problem with that form of. I'm all for that. But colonizing Mars, you got to take vehicles, materials, personal possessions to Mars. I am 60 years old. I've moved around a dozen times from the day I was born till 9th grade. I was born in Wisconsin, moved to Michigan. My parents moved to Michigan. My brother was born in Michigan. We moved to Kentucky, Valley Station, which is outskirts of Louisville. Then we moved to Louisville. Then we moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. Then we moved to Hallway, Wisconsin. Then we moved to Marshall, Wisconsin. Then we moved to Spencer, Wisconsin. Then we moved to Houston, Texas. Then we moved to Victoria, Texas. And it's in Victoria, Texas where I created the Flower Child Project Manned Spaceflight Design Council. It is in Victoria, Texas that everything as a high school came together. My writing style was created, well, actually the brackets and stuff that I use in my prose, which don't occur very often, actually was created back in elementary school in first, second, and third grade. But by after 5th, 6th grade, it got kind of abandoned, and then around 11th, 12th grade, it came back. In 1984, it came back. But it does not show up the brackets, braces, and the parentheses within my prose writings is a thing, but does not happen very often. It's a rarity. But my other forms of writing, my capitalization rules, the using of the upside down question mark in front of my questions, that started in 1984. So these are so I have done between 1986 In 1992, the flower chart project was on hold. In fact, between 1985 through 1992, it was not known as the flower chart project. It was known as my 1985 manned spacecraft design concept for the next generation of Mercury and Gemini and Apollo spacecraft designs. In 1992, I had a one-year membership with the Planetary Society, 1992-1993. And during that one-year membership, I got the membership. They asked me, I acquired the membership because I was talking about my flower chart project. The manned space, my 1985 spacecraft design concept, which is now the flower chart project. And so that's how I got my membership. While I was doing the membership, the Planetary Society learned that the Apollo Capsule 009 was not being maintained by the University of Nebraska, and so they raised all Cain, and they had a petition. The Planetary Society created a petition for its members to sign and say, either clean this up, put it on display, or give it to somebody else. I didn't sign that petition. I wrote my own letter to the University of Nebraska, trying to get information on the Apollo CSM-LM spacecraft design, because that's the core of the flower chart project. At the end, the last paragraph. Oh, by the way, if you're not maintaining it, that's bad. That's bad on. That's your bad. Basically, do not. That's not a good thing. But so there was some exchange, and I was able. From that exchange, I was able to learn how to contact NASA. I wrote NASA about my flower chart project, and they gave me some paperwork. The 1998 STS manual, 1,000-page document. I got that. The Apollo 1970 April Apollo More, version 3. There's a bunch of pages that have been removed. So it's not what I was looking for, but it worked. It got me going. So in 1993, my 1985 manned spacecraft design concept for the next generation of Mercury and Gemini and Apollo spacecraft designs became the flower chart project. All capitals, whatever. And so between 1993 and 1998, I worked on what I call the flower chart project, the FCP SCS habitation module. Or it's also the 1990s habitation module design, which basically is a 60-foot by 15-foot diameter habitation module that fits within the Space Shuttle cargo bay. I knew, but in the 1990s, I knew the Space Shuttle was not going to be flying by the time if this project was going to be undertaken. That it's not, this just was gone. But it was an exercise in how the FCP STS habitation model design was an example how the habitation models can change from my original concept of the habitation module, which is this. Okay, this is the lunar module. This is the the area that the astronauts stayed. Actually, about half of that was space that they occupied. The other half was equipment and stuff, life support systems that make the habitation. This is the ascent stage, and this is the descent stage. And this is a simplified version of landing gear. The habitation module design for the Flower Child project is this whole thing. Now, this lighting that's the frame structure, and this dark area is the interior. So you have 3 deck areas, and you have about a foot of space between each deck, form the frame structure and the skin. And so this is the outer skin, frame structure, outer skin to protect the interior. So this is the landing feet, the space, the SCS. So now because the drawings on my I have something here. Okay, that's science fiction. Oh, a copy of the 2004 presentation for it. Actually, this is 2004 plus. Let's see here. This is the SCP-STS habitation module, aka the 1990s habitation module design. And this is the original module design. Now I have there's different orientations. So this is, so I had to reduce the dimensions from, which was 31 feet in diameter of the landing feet here, which is in the Apollo Moore, to 22 feet here. And so I've forgotten about that, and so it's only until recently, this is wrong, but yeah, so this is, yeah, this was for the PBS NewsHour back in 2012. I could not find that KRN, so I basically kept this. But this is the 2004 to 2005. Let's see. This is basically the 2004 presentation. The 2004 got updated every once in a while, so it's a 2004 plus presentation. Oh, okay. That's the. Yeah, I did some. That's this thing right here. That goes in here. One of these goes in here. I don't have these updated. I should date these so I know what's going on. This is Lido. That's Lido. Now that's a number. So oh, wait a minute. 30 September 2012. So, okay, so they're basically the same thing. Okay. One is the. Oh, this is okay. That's corrected. So this is the more updated version. I haven't touched. The flower child project is dead in the water. I do not have the means of working on these text documents, so I cannot complete the the presentation for the year 2020 AD. 2020 AD. So, which would include these 3D drawings and stuff. The Prisma 3D projects is not an actual continuation of the 2000. Is not a continuation of the flower child project. I'm just dabbling with concepts, spacecraft design concepts and stuff. But with the what I've done here with the Prisma 3D is I really focused on the Earth Mars colony spacecraft design more so than what this is. This is basically comparing this is weak. It's basically comparing the Apollo CSM-LM with the flower child. Okay, this is what's the differences between the Apollo CSM spacecraft design and the flower child spacecraft design. Okay, what is the goals? What's the parameters? What's going on here? Why are you making these changes? What's significant about this? Flower child is the prototype for researching this happy stuff. Okay, this is let's see here. Researching Earth Luna. I gotta figure out which one's it. Earth Luna and Earth Mars spaceflight. Okay. This is better representation. Earth Mars, Earth Luna. We are capable of doing this. To get to Mars, we need to do this. Now, what does the Earth Mars colony spacecraft look like? I don't know. The flower child project, the model Mars colony spacecraft design, is an exercise in what it may or may not look like. Basically, the SCP model is 806 feet long, 128 feet wide, and 88 feet deep. Okay, that is the World War II Japanese battleship Yamato volume, hull volume. Now the deep is, okay, you have, you can go, the draft is between 36 feet and 38 feet, depending on which source you go by. I used a 40-foot freeboard. The freeboard that I saw, the bow freeboard is 38 feet, not 48. So, wait a minute, yeah. No, 50 feet, correction. 48 feet and not 50 feet. But at the time I memorized 50 feet, and I did this research back in high school during the 1980s. And I had forgotten that it was actually 48 feet. But I just maximized for simplification. Because from what the data that I was referencing is from the James Book of Ships, and the model hull, from the bow, bow was like this, then mission, and then stern was like this. So that curvature, 48 feet bow, 26 feet freeboard, 48 feet freeboard, 26 freeboard, 38 feet, 38 feet freeboard. I think it's a 36 feet or 38 feet median freeboard. That all of that was like blew my mind, and so I just 50 feet freeboard versus and 38 feet draft, which is the maximum draft I could see for the model. So 88 feet deep. That's where the 88 feet deep comes from, and so the Flowerchild project and model is just. It's a theoretical exercise. It's an exercise in theoretics. It's not the end goal of what the Mars colonized spacecraft would look like. Although, how big is big? The Nova rocket is not going to suffice. 2 Nova rockets is not going to suffice for colonizing Mars. Elon Musk's sent ships, one after another to Mars, and they die. They follow up, cannibalizes the dead stuff, and then continues on. No, that's bullshit. So. This is the work I put into my Flowerchild project. So that's the 2004 presentation for basically. These are text documents that I worked on, that I put on Facebook, and that also I put into use the Microsoft Windows Write program, Write.exe, or WordPad, Notepad. WordPad. Notepad would be the monochrome, which would be the editor for script Visual Basic script writings, JavaScript writings, and stuff like that. Coding, and I did use Notepad, Microsoft Windows Notepad for my coding activities. So let's see here, so I have a bunch of different text documents. Colonizing Luna and Mars, the Flowerchild project method. One text document. A repeat of that text document. So these sections, these are they're separated by different sections. Spacecraft design concept, the outer space tourism industry, the outer space tourism is essential for financing the colonization of Mars. You're not going to get civilians to colonize Mars if they do not have first-hand space experience in outer space, going to space stations, being in Earth's orbit like the Apollo Soyuz missions back in the 1970s. Okay, if you do not have a space station devoted for outer space tourism activities, newlyweds going to our space station and say, okay, we want to spend our newlywed in the space station. Okay, the way I envision outer space tourism activities would include the tourists engaging in the simulation of the missions activities that was done in the 50s, 60s, and 70s by astronauts and cosmonauts during the first space race era. you could have a sports arena like there was as a 1980s RPGer, role-playing game player, not Rocket Grenadier. I kind of stopped with that joke. There was a game called Grab Ball. It was a tabletop miniatures word game type. It's a sports game. The basketball type game that Battlestar Galactica was on Battlestar Galactica in the 1970s. It was basically something like that, but zero graph. I want to get that game. I've always wanted to get that game. But you can have, zero gravity sports activities, entertainment activities for the tourists. Going in space. Have an observation deck and seeing out, maybe they can do some spacewalking to the space station, of course. And stuff like that. That's what I envision. What do people want to do as outer space tourists? I don't know. Nobody cares. My Facebook notes section got shut down. The Aquarius Laboratory QLab Facebook was. This is not an official man. No, I am not a Elon Musk. I'm not Howard Hughes. Okay. I don't have buddies and stuff. I don't have circle of friends. I'm not in, dialogue, regular communications with Buzz Aldrin, for example. He kind of doesn't like me. The few times we communicate, and that's okay. Different generations, different focus. But in case no militarizing weaponizing of outer space, that's going to happen. And the purpose of Fallout Trial Project is to prevent that from happening. If we can get peaceful, push this back. NASA and the Planetary Society is not doing that. USSR N1 rocket failure, and NASA's 1970s and 1980s D-Space spacecraft design. Okay, I have my own theory as to why the N1 rocket failed. And that theory is centered around the rocket engine design, how the rockets are orientated. The centermost engines on the N1 rocket is in this formation, and not in the formation. You don't have that, but if you do this, but there's a reason this is when you have these guys are compact, you got this going on. When you have 6 engines, when you have 8 engines, you got a space. You can't get them to touch. It ain't happening. And the mathematics, I don't have the math. I don't think there's a mathematics to do the actual calculation of how the center, what's the diameter of the center to get all these guys to touch each other. I have 3 years of high school drafting training. where I could fudge that, but I have not practiced my drafting. Okay, this is back in 1980, back in 1980s, and we're now 40 years ago, 40 plus years. I've been in the San Antonio Bexar County areas for 40 years. And I was living in Victoria, Texas for 2 years. I moved, I graduated high school a year or two before I moved to San Antonio. So yeah, and this is the main reason why I believe that the N1 rocket failed. Now, there was computer programming errors, wiring errors, since wrong sensor was attached to the wrong engine, and so there was, but the problem was with this, okay, this is an example of how okay, when you have a 6-engine rocket layout like this, if one engine if this engine goes out, you don't have, if you have, if this engine goes out, you have to knock out this engine. Now, if you want to do it left and right, you need these two engines to work. Okay? If one of these fails, you've got one engine failed, and you get an engine failure here, you're screwed. Whereas, you got an engine failure here, you can knock this out. You got an engine failure here, you can knock this out, but you still have, right, if this happens, you're kind of screwed too. Because without this, you still have this. But without this, you don't have, you still have this, but, so you're not totally screwed. And that's what, that's what this diagram is about. So that's, for me, that's the main issue with the N1 rocket. The other technological issues have been proven, whatever, that's okay. But for me, the main fear, that is a design flaw, and that's not, but there are, like I said, from an engineering perspective, this is very difficult. This is a very difficult design to work with, and it's easier to make these 3x3s in a square than it is to do this. But even then, you have an unbalanced, when you do 3x3 square engines, you have an imbalance of thrust. The vertical would be inside, and these would be outside, and so you're further away from the center line, so the thrust force is greater, is different from the thrust force that's on the inside, which is closer to the center line. So there's an imbalance. There is an imbalance between the, so it's, right, it's really, and then, this is from the NASA, the STS that NASA gave me. I small-spread 2 different images to make that. But that's where these drawings comes in. Some of these drawings. So that's the N1 rocket theory. This is the summary, the 2004 project summary. And this is a better diagram. The Apollo CSM and the flower child, the basic. Now there are two within the 2004 presentation folder. There are, the flower child comes in 4 categories: Type 1, Type 2, Type A, Type B. Type 1 and 2, I got to figure out which one is which. I haven't studied this in a while. Type 1 and Type 2, either Type 1, Type 2, or Type A, Type B. I think Type 1, Type 2 has to do with the service module. Type A, Type B has to do with the habitation, orientation of the crew members within the habitation module. So, Type A, so Type 1 would be the service module concept. Type B would be, you divide the service module into the propellant module and the engine module. And then within the Type 2, within this, what I believe is Type 2, I could be wrong. The A and B's in Type 1, Type 2 could be reversed. Within the propellant module, you can further divide the propellant module into the oxidizer module and the fuel module. Back in between 1998 and 2002, I was on Space Exploration Online talking about my flower child project, and I mistakenly got in the habit of calling the fuel module, the propellant module, the fuel module, and I knew it was wrong. I was having a live conversation. I knew the terminology was wrong, but my mindset was on that terminology, so I used it. And while doing that discussion, my brain blew a circuit and my retard button kicked in. And the conversation had to end. So, and it was a nice conversation too. No, I do not have what it takes to pursue the flower child project. So, so this is the work that I put into it. This is the Blender graphics that I created. And then there are some online images that I copied or Xeroxed. Okay, so, and then let's do this. Flower child project, base site, instead of Earth orbit, maintenance space. Okay, lunar base site instead of Earth. Okay, this was written in May 2016. Oh. Okay, so that was back in 2016. Okay. This is my version of the Enterprise Command bridge layout. This is a 2004 presentation folder drawing. Saturn V, Flower Child, Space Station for the Flower Child, maintenance space station for the Flower Child. Some This is Blender 3D data for what colorization of objects and stuff. And then some other data concerning the Blender 3D projects. I think these are notes. Again, I took some video talking about spacecraft designs and stuff. There's a text document that compares science fiction spacecraft designs to real-life science technology, and the disconnect that is there with the sciences and technologies concerning spaceflight. And then, okay, so this is your model. Now, this version of your model, the SPD model, is 35 feet by 35 feet. 35 feet freeboard and 35 feet draft for simplification of the drawing itself. And then you have the Apollo CSM, the Apollo Saturn 5 stage 1 SC, S1C stage here. And showing how, what's needed to propel that thing. So this is the basic format. This is how the Flower Child project designs rockets. Present day rocket designs, you have the fuel module, you have the fuel tank, you have the oxidizer tank. They are on the outside of the, they are touching the atmosphere. The Flower Child project spacecraft design creates a frame structure and a skin which is outer skin's touched to, that encases the the oxidizer module and the fuel module. And then you have the cargo capacity of the rocket here. So that's the main difference in design theories. So when you come into this, okay, is that weird, or is that just two different? Okay, that's just two different hulls. Okay, two halves of the hulls. Okay. Give you a better. Okay. Now, I have used different numbers for length, beam, and depth of the Flower Child project and model spacecraft hull. It's all theoretics, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to scratch. I'm not actually saying, "Oh, this design. These are the actual numbers to work with." I do not have the mathematics skills. I do not have the knowledge and information to go that route. So, and then some 2004 presentation drawings. Another explanation of the habitation module design. And then you have the different, you got the service module concept, the propeller module and the engine module concept, and versus the CSM LM concept. So the purpose of creating this is so that you can switch out the engine sections and put bigger engines, more engines, or you can change the engine structure without changing the propellant structure. You can change the propellant structure without changing the engine structure, engine module structure. So that's why I have this. And then you can further break down the propellant module into the fuel module, oxidizer module, and you can change the fuel module design without changing the oxidizer module design. You can change the oxidizer module without changing the fuel module design. And so that's what my theory is about. So the X-Wing, when it comes to fighter designs, this is the ultimate weapon, and this will be the extinction of the human species. This is my favorite. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is the most realistic of the space fighter designs for the fictional. Now the rotor may be too small or something for atmospheric flight, but it's the most realistic. Now you got the landing gear issues there. I like the X-Wing because when you're in combat mode, you have 4 weapons, and they converge at 4 different angles, and so they come in like this, and so there's better conversion compared to what this does. You have 2 that has to converge at a point. And that is the same thing with this. You have 2 lasers that come in at a point. So yeah, so the X-Wing is pretty interesting design in that aspect. These are the inspirations for Star Child, which is a fictional spaceship design that I created for the Traveler Science Fiction Adventure in the Far Future RPG, copyright 1980, ship design rules. Now, this was back in 1985, and I created multi-rules versions for that, not aware of the High Guard. Is it book 15, supplemental 15, something like that, in which you had there was an updated version to the ship design rules in which you could actually create spaceships that look like this, that perform like this. Weapon bays, weapons in the nose, turrets, bomb bays, and wing-mounted missile systems, and you could do all kinds of heavy stuff with that. And at the time, in '84, I was not aware of that. So I was experimenting with these, what I call the multi-drive rule system. I created the programs, multi-drive programs, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that you can have, so yeah, there's, and this reawakened my interest working on this project, RPG, reawakened my interest in real-life spacecraft designs. Prior to, when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, I was paying attention to spaceflight, see what's going on. And the first breaking news that I've experienced in my lifetime was the Apollo 1 fire. However, I was too young to understand what the Apollo 1 fire was. by the time the Apollo 8 mission came along, Apollo 1 fire, Apollo 1 fire, Apollo 1 fire. Then their first Earthrise and the reading of the Genesis chapter 1 by the astronauts, Apollo 1 fire, what's that? Ancient history. So, we're moving on. So, for me, if Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins had died during the Apollo 11 mission, or if they died during the splashdown of the Apollo mission, no manned spaceflight. I'd be against it altogether. And there would be no Flower Child project. So, the X-Wing fighter is, as a design, is very, very heavily abused. This is a turret. It is meant to... Okay, this is a space station. This is a TIE fighter. It's out here doing this. Okay? It does not fulfill the role of the X-Wing fighter. Okay? This is the XF-58 Goblin. Okay? It's a parasite fighter. It hangs around the ship, does its thing for 15 minutes, whatever. Combat duration 15-30 minutes. And then goes back into spacecraft, in the mothership, for refueling, reloading, whatever. This is giving this the same range capabilities of an X-Wing fighter. Total BS. And escape pod concept, good idea. Such a beautiful machine. So, okay, so there's all kinds of happy stuff here. Drawings that, are the same. This, like I said, this is one of my first. I did this back in 2015. This is one of my first attempts at adapting the 2004 presentation photographic concepts. I don't know. This is one of my, So I had, these are the theories that I had for the 2004 and reaction control systems. This is the, I think that's just a human volume representation. Don't have the computer system, don't know what is that. More the, so just, and then there's some data, screenshots of the information, the Blender information on my spacecraft designs that I blew up, cut and paste. I use the MS Paint. All these are modified with MS Paint, Microsoft Windows Paint application. This is a variation of a Flower Child lunar, what would be called Lunar Child series. some design theories concerning the Lunar Child series. The Flower Child, what is known is look at the Flower Child is actually a prototype design. It's a theoretical design. It's a static model design to represent the various theories. It's not. The Lunar Child is the actual spacecraft series. Excuse me. That does the heavy lift load of research and developing the sciences, technology, protocols needed for Earth, Mars, interplanetary spaceflight activities. The Lunar Child is the heavy lift in terms of outer space tourism capabilities. The exploration, manned exploration activities that NASA, ESA, or whoever wants to do, in Earth's orbit and lunar orbit, beyond the lunar orbit and, within the Earth's planetary orbital path, beyond the lunar orbit. The space in between the Mars and Earth planetary orbits and stuff, and some ideas, dabblings into how big is big. So you have, let's see here, you have like the habitation, the habitation module section is divided into different sections. You got the bridge module. You have the common room area. You would have the, So within the Flower Child Project Habitation Module design, you have the mission deck, you have the common area deck, and you have the privacy deck. The mission deck, it has all the equipment that would need to do the mission of the spacecraft. So this is where you're, if you want to launch probes into, if you want to go and have the spacecraft orbit the moon for a month, assuming that this is a 3-man crew, they have enough supplies here to keep them in lunar orbit for a month before doing their trip back to Earth. Maybe you want to launch some probes, lunar surface probes, maybe lunar orbital probes. You would have equipment for that here. Maybe you're doing life and science stuff. You would that would be in here. If you're bringing animals or plants, or maybe you're doing some biomedical research on the astronauts themselves, that would be here. But again, what's the mission role? If you're going to we're just going to do planetology on the moon, then you have planetology equipment here, maybe lunar surface probes that be launched from here, or is stored here, and then, or maybe not stored here, but you have the equipment to communicate with it and control the lunar surface probe from here. Then you have another section where the probes would be actually stored and launched from, and maybe retrieved from. If it's a lunar orbital probe, you can launch it and then retrieve it. That would be another space section. But this is the habitation module section. This is for the humans inhabit. So within the, as a outer space tourism industry, this would be, your tourists would be here, tourist activities would be here and stuff. But then you have the crew, maybe your crew here. The common area would be here. The common area would be the kitchen area, would be the exercise room area, would be the social area where people socialize and stuff. They're not working, but they're not engaged in mission activities, but they're awake and they're not asleep. They're not spending some. I need some me time. In the privacy areas, that's where they sleep. That's the primary. Somebody's sick or injured. This is their medical bay. Their private room is their medical bay. Somebody's in an argument. Somebody needs some time out. Okay, needs some isolation, separation. This is what a privacy deck is about. Okay, go in your corner. Okay. You go in your corner. Okay. And then yelling at each other through the walls. Yeah, no. So this is the first generation habitation module design. With the SCP STS, it's you have multiple decks. So each deck would be a person's privacy area. And then you would have a tunnel, crawl space tunnel, either in the center or on the side, in the center or on the side. The access to access to other stuff here. So, yeah, that's. And this is more detailed of what the Star Child was. This is more detailed Star Child. I did some Star Child stuff with Banana 3D. This is an attempt at creating a solar system with Banana 3D. Buzz Aldrin published some books concerning Earth and Mars. And one of his books, he did a diagram showing the Earth moving at one way and the Mars moving another way. I did a project that did that modeling, that did that motion graphics modeling. This is an attempt to do the same thing, but with the moon's orbiting the Earth, or the Earth's orbiting the sun. This is okay. That's the space plane. This is a space plane. The way science fiction depicts spaceflight, space combat, they treat spacecraft as they are atmospheric aircraft. And that's not realistic at all. They behave more like helicopters. They go up and down, left and right. They can rotate. Okay? They can go forward and backwards. Forward and backwards. Okay. Left and right. Up and down. Okay? That's how helicopters behave. And you can do that in outer space with spacecraft. To make the spacecraft fly like an airplane in an atmosphere, you need this type of layout. Now, there's I have closer up Blender projects concerning that. I skipped a bunch of stuff, so it might be back here. So yeah, so that's how, you know. Let's see here if I got a better representation. This is Dr. TARDIS. Privateer. Moon Commander Privateer. Okay, so yeah, I have done this is taken from the book Man in Space from the Life Science Library collection. My dad had the Life Science Library collection since I was in preschool, before I was in preschool. I was looking through these books. I went through the entire collection at least once in my life. Man in Space, Ships, and Flight are the 3 books that I have referenced in the past 10 years. I cracked open these books within the past 10 years. The other books I have not opened up as frequently. During my kindergarten years, I destroyed 3 books. So we're missing the 2 index books, or partial index book. Then there's an actual book that got destroyed. So there's 3 different books. One was an index book, the partial index book. So I don't know. There's but yeah, white privilege maybe. For what I've done. In my life, concerning the Flowchart Project, black inkskers could do the same job if they make the effort. Now, the problem with black Americans is a lot of them have dyslexia, whether they know it or not. So that is a problem within the black community that may or may not be really fully understood or acknowledged. But that, I believe that's an issue that is a main contributor to the gangsta stuff. Because I can't read, it doesn't really matter. You know, I know what's going on, that's all, you know. So, so yeah, I'm not I'm no Buzz Aldrin, I'm no Neil Armstrong, I'm no Warner von Braun, okay? But I spent time thinking about spacecraft my entire life. I've been fantasizing about spacecraft designs my entire life. The science fiction, USA Hollywood, I don't say US, USA, United States of America, Hollywood, is very disingenuous about outer space issues. Gene Roddenberry, with the original Star Trek series, did not want an outer space warfare thing. The Starship Enterprise within the TOS was used in every manned mission role imaginable. It was a trade ship. It was used as a mercantile trade ship. It was used as an X-ship. It was used as a scout ship. It was used as an ambassador ship. It was used as a warship. Excuse me. It was used, as a colony ship. In fact, outside of the case storyline, the first 3 episodes of the Star Trek series, everybody on the Enterprise crew, from the red shirts to the captain, Enterprise is a colony ship. Enterprise is not a warship. By the end of the series production, Enterprise is one of the strongest warships within the human sphere, within the Star Trek universe. Star Trek universe being the Federation of Planets, the Klingon Empire, and Raman Empire. Now you had the Orions and Tholians and stuff. You had other entities and stuff, but within the Star Trek universe is primary Romulans, Klingons, and the Federation of Planets. So outside of that, the Constitution was the most powerful warship class. If not the most powerful, one of the most powerful. If the Enterprise wasn't the most powerful, it was one of the most powerful warships. Okay. So there's that change. But you had the TOS, Star Trek TOS, was about interactions. Friend, foe, neutral. Sometimes the Enterprise was friendly, sometimes it was hostile, sometimes they were neutral. Sometimes the people encountered were hostile, sometimes they were neutral, sometimes they were hostile. Sometimes they pretended to be friendly, but they were actually hostile or neutral. Sometimes they pretended friendly, but they were hostile, or they pretended to be one thing, but their reaction another. They pretended to be one thing, but their reaction another. And so you had all these different clashes and how they interacted with us and why the interactions occurred. A lot of protocols there. Battlestar Galactica, UFO, Space 1999. They were outright military storylines. Now, the UFO was actually an exercise, was a non-lethal, it was supposed to be a non-lethal exercise, and it abduction, but Stryker got command of the thing and mistaken everything for actual combat, and at the end he was removed, and the purpose of the UFO was to prevent what Stryker did from happening. And the deaths were not real. The aliens were Chinese and were part of the coalition that was being, it was a peaceful thing. And Stryker went off the rails. So that's what this UFO was about. Battlestar Galactica TOS was outright humans versus robots. The way I looked at the Cylons, you had, look at the Cylon Raider. that is a beautiful spacecraft design. Um, you had 3 seats, which is basically commander, navigator, and pilot of the command of the Apollo program. But being a warship, military combat spacecraft, Star Wars terminology, warship, yeah, X-Wing fighter is a space fighter, but it's called a spaceship. Yeah, everything's a spaceship in Star Wars. The Apollo CSM is a spaceship. The Soyuz spacecraft is a spaceship. ISS is a spaceship. Or whatever. But that's you see, that is USA multimedia industry, sci-fi franchises trying to differentiate themselves from each other and from real life science and technologies. So when I see the Cylons, the 1970s Cylons, with the Y2K, I try to watch that, the way they portrayed the Cylons and the Y2K Battlestar. Nope, I'm out of here. So I've seen some episodes, but it was like, okay, I was trying to see, see how it compared to the original. The storyline eventually came out. I seemed to went back to the near end. It's this is what happened in the 1970s happened eons ago. It's a repeat. If you don't know your history, you repeat your history. History repeats itself. They basically followed what the Transformers did. The 1985 original series ended, and with them going back in time and finding the wars on Cybertron, and then the reboot. So they rebooted. There was time travel involved, and the Autobots planted themselves on Earth and got frozen, whatever, and then were eventually awakened. And then the time, because it's a new timeline, different changes. So each repeat of the universe was a different timeline, and that's what the Battlestar 2000 series did in relation to the 1970s. What I'm seeing in the Mars colony program, the conversation about Mars, colonizing Mars, is basically bullshit. Not that, okay, the issues of what it takes to try, no, that's legitimate. The issues of, those are concerns, actual concerns. But how are you going to get there? That's what the Flower Child Project is about. We are only capable. Last time we've been to the moon, prior to Artemis 2, was the Apollo 17. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay. So, with Harrison Smith finding orange rock on the moon. what's needed to get to Mars. Buzz Aldrin's Mars Direct exclusive interview, he was talking about, okay, we're going to do a temporary base. We're going to establish a temporary base. It's going to be habited temporarily. And then eventually we're going, after 20 to 40 years, it's going to be, we're done with the Mars exploration. The guy that interviewed him was actually was a substitute news anchor, and he did a bait and switch on the colonization terminology. And he got Buzz Aldrin to commit to the legal term of colonization versus the civilian colonial terminology of colonization. So, when Buzz Aldrin was committed to the legal term of colonization, the substitute news anchor was using the civilian colonial version terminology of colonization. Two very different things. Or you're going to try to put establish permanent human colony on Mars. No. This is what it's going to take. What's it going to take? The material. What Buzz Aldrin said in the Mars Direct interview was great for astronauts and cosmonauts to go to Mars, set a base, and come back to Earth. That is doable. Establishing a permanent colony on Mars is a totally different ballgame. And the problem is civilians are not interested in outer space tourism because it's not safe. Civilians, Disney, one of the Disney World, there's two of them, had a Star Wars thing, colony thing, where people can tour and be, here's this, and then you got the rebels and the Empire fighting each other outside, boom, boom, the space, Civilians don't want to be in that. Civilians don't want to be in the middle of warfare. Civilians don't want to be attacked by alien monsters. Civilians don't want to worry about extraterrestrials trying to eat them, exterminate them, have dominion over them, whatever. Rape and breed with them, and I grew up, watching 90% of the sci-fi TV series, sci-fi movies is outer space warfare. Star Blazers, Robotech, Gundam, Babylon 5, Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Voyager, War. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. What was the other one? the little guys, and then their parents. What's that one? That one. Wally. Silent Running. But even, in Silent Running, the guy killed his other people. So, aliens, predators. Mars invades. Independence Day. Where's the peace? Where's the love? I grew up on Star Trek. Well, I watched Doctor Who on and off over the years from 1972 to 1985. And during 1972 and 1985, I watched Star Trek on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, as a religion almost. Now, there were about 20 times during that point where I didn't watch Star Trek because of other things, like Camelot, the musical series and miniseries. Watched that instead of Star Trek. Family outings had to occur or something like that. There's reasons. There's about 20 times where I didn't watch Star Trek for reasons. But by 1984-95, I've seen every episode that was there 20 times. I was like, okay, I'm bored with this. And so then I got, at that same time, I found Doctor Who, I can watch Doctor Who. So I watched Doctor Who from beginning to end and sequence. Then Tom Baker left, and like many Trekkies, Tom Baker was the Doctor, and bye, he's gone, I'm gone. But I occasionally watched Doctor Who, so I'm familiar with all the Doctors. Prior to then I haven't seen the black guy. Got one series of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. Saw some YouTube videos about that and was watching. As it got totally destroyed my experience with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. The first series, the first year, and it's like, okay, but Doctor Who is on the premise of let's explore. You're a tourist going to some other planet and some other time. Let's visit the Walk in the Park painting. Tom Baker's was one of Tom Baker's storylines was let's go to the time period of when the Walk in the Park painting occurred. Alien invasion and be afraid, run away. What? What Doctor Who could have done Gene Roddenberry on stuff. But Doctor Who is sci-fi horror at its core. Now, the new Who, starting with Chris Christensen, the ninth Doctor. It was all comedy. They disguised the horror and with comedy sequences. And so it's like, this is scary. No, it's like, but it's meant to be. It's meant to be. It's because Doctor Who what Gene Roddenberry did with science fiction was science before Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. Science fiction was a subgenre of horror. Outer space science fiction is a subgenre of science fiction. So you had the science fiction storylines. You had an outer space genre. You had nuclear holocaust genre. Okay, you have other things. There's subcategories of science fiction. Biology, mutations, blah, blah, blah. So, but there's all a subgenre of science fiction, and science fiction is a subgenre of horror. What Gene Roddenberry did was say, we're ripping science fiction out of it and giving it its own category. Within science fiction, you're going to have noir, film noir, the dark detective, pulp fiction, not Michael, what's his name? Samuel Jackson's Pulp Fiction and John Travolta's not that, but the 1930s, 1940s novel, film noir, the Spider Noir, Johnny Cage's Spider Noir thing, era type storylines. You can do. They had that. They had World War II thing. They had comedy. They had sci-fi. There was an episode that was sci-fi thrillers. You had, they everything in everything, not just horror. You had romance. You had, there was, you had everything. It was not just horror. It's not scary. It's not meant to be scary. It's not meant to be, oh my God, science technology is evil. There's some of that too, but that's not the premise. The series was the Star Trek TOS opened George Lucas's Star Wars. What Gene Roddenberry did with Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry said, okay, you got this, you got this, you got this. Just put it all together in one storyline. Star Wars Episode 4 appealed to everybody. Age, you could be a senior citizen and you like it. You could be a kindergarten kid and you like it. You could be a teenager, you like it. You could be a 20-year-old, you like it. 40-year-old, okay? Didn't matter age. A boy, you like it. You could be a girl, you liked it. You could be an equestrian rider, you like it. You could be a military fauna, aficionado, okay, speech impairment and not knowing how to pronounce the word, okay. What's her name? YouTuber, Officer Ramirez, okay, Officer Ramirez, okay, type person. You have, romance. You had everything in there. You had comedy. You had sword and sorcery. You had swashbuckling. Errol Flynn swashbuckling. Okay? It was everything all at once. So, but these did not have outer space tourism. Oh, what's that? There's that one outer space tourism movie. The guy and the girl, their pods messed up, and they grew a tree on the spaceship. Okay, that's an outer space tourism. No, okay, that's another example. Okay, 1 out of 10 movies is violence, warfare. Really? Not even, it's worse than that. 95 to 99%. And that's the reason why Mars program is not going to happen. Because we are more interested in bombing Iran than we are in putting humans on the moon. The Republican Party would rather scrap Artemis and just do, bomb Iran, bomb whoever, go after drug cartels with the BS, Let's make warships, the Navy is in a debacle because the USA Republicans do not care about the needs of the military. Not really. And so the U.S. is going to, when it comes to going to military conflict between the U.S. and China, we're going to get our asses wiped. The next major war is going to involve Earth orbiting satellites being destroyed. And, and multiple nations already demonstrated they have the technology to launch using an Earth-bound weapon system to hit and destroy a satellite in Earth's orbit. Modern day generation jets, fighter jets, are capable of reaching the ionosphere. Now, they cannot go into the ionosphere. They cannot fly within the ionosphere because the ionosphere has no atmospheric things and there's not rockets. Okay, but they can just flow just below the boundary layer and launch missiles into outer space and hit satellites that way. We're going to have space fighters, aerospace fighters, before we're going to have civilian tourists. And we're not talking about millionaires like Danny Tito. We're not talking, William Shatner did not, he was, he bordered the ionosphere. He did not go into Earth orbit proper. So that's, that capsule design is not designed for vacuum of space. So that is all I have to say about that.